Imagine carrying a child for 11 long months, only to discover something no one could ever expect. When Zalika was born, the village midwife gasped in disbelief. Her parents, Naya and her husband, swore to keep the shocking truth hidden from the world. But secrets, especially ones as extraordinary as this, have a way of coming out. What was the truth about Zalika, and how did her birth change everything for her village? Zalika's arrival into the world was anything but ordinary. After carrying her for an astonishing 11 months, Naya, her mother, feared something was wrong. The village midwife, Adana, prepared herself for the worst as she assisted with the birth. But when Zalika was finally born, what they discovered left everyone in stunned silence. Adana leaned in closer, her experienced hands trembling slightly as she examined the newborn. "Mia," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Your child has both." Naya's heart pounded in her chest. Both? She knew what Adana meant, but she couldn't bring herself to say the words. Her husband rushed to her side, confusion and worry etched on his face. "What does this mean for us? For Zalika?" he asked, his voice cracking under the weight of uncertainty. Adana, calm despite the shock, looked at them both and said, "You must keep this a secret. The village will not understand. Only the three of us will know." And with that, they made a vow to protect their child's future, concealing the truth of Zalika's special birth from the world. As Zalika grew, her uniqueness remained hidden from the outside world. Her parents, Mia and her husband, raised her with love and care, but the weight of their secret never left their minds. Zalika, though quiet and reserved, sensed from an early age that she was different. She often found herself retreating into solitude, avoiding situations where she might be discovered. Village children would often run to the river, laughing and splashing in the water during the hottest days. Zalika, however, stayed behind. She would watch them from a distance, her heart heavy as she longed to join, but feared the consequences of revealing herself. Whenever it came time for the girls to bathe, Zalika would slip away, claiming she needed time alone. "Why don't you ever come to the river with us?" one of her friends, Abeni, asked one afternoon, curiosity in her voice. Zalika simply smiled and shrugged, hiding the deeper truth behind her gentle response. "I prefer the quiet," she said softly, but inside, she wished she could be like the others, free from the burden of her secret. Despite her isolation, Zalika's kind nature shone brightly. She was known for helping the elders with their daily tasks, delivering food to the sick, and offering a smile to anyone in need. Though she kept her distance in certain moments, the villagers loved her for her quiet acts of kindness. But even as Zalika grew, the questions began to build within her. Why had she been born this way? And how long could she keep her secret safe? As Zalika grew older, the burden of her secret weighed more heavily on her shoulders. Yet, despite the internal struggle she faced, her kind and gentle spirit endeared her to everyone in the village. She was always the first to help someone in need, whether it was tending to an injured child or bringing water to an elder. The villagers would often praise her selflessness, calling her the heart of the village. "She's a blessing," they would say, admiring her quiet strength. But little did they know, Zalika was carrying a secret so profound that it kept her awake at night. Each time she helped someone, Zalika felt a momentary sense of peace. Her acts of kindness were not just for others, but a way to silence the constant fear that her difference would be discovered. She hoped that by giving so much to the village, perhaps the gods would bless her with understanding, or at the very least, a life without judgment. One day, as Zalika carried food to an elderly woman who had fallen ill, the old woman looked into her eyes and said, "You have the spirit of someone who carries a heavy burden, child." Zalika's heart skipped a beat, but she smiled and bowed her head, as always, saying nothing. The villagers adored Zalika, but they couldn't see the truth she carefully concealed. They didn't know that each act of kindness was also an act of deflection, keeping their eyes on her good deeds rather than on the mystery she held inside. Zalika's heart, though full of love for others, was heavy with the fear of discovery. How long could she maintain this fragile balance? As Zalika blossomed into adulthood, her beauty and grace caught the attention of many suitors in the village. Yet, none pursued her more earnestly than Enzi, a kind and respected man known for his wisdom and gentle nature. Enzi had admired Zalika from afar for years, not just for her beauty, but for her kindness and the quiet strength she carried within her. The village whispered with excitement when Enzi, after months of admiring Zalika, finally approached her parents with a marriage proposal. Zalika's parents, Naya and her husband, exchanged uneasy glances. They had always known this day would come, but they had never prepared themselves for how to navigate it. The secret they had kept since Zalika's birth suddenly loomed larger than ever. Enzi stood before them, hopeful and sincere. "I wish to marry Zalika," he declared with a warm smile. "I promise to honor and protect her as she deserves." Zalika, standing quietly beside her parents, felt her heart pound. Could she possibly enter into a marriage while keeping such a secret from the man who adored her? She had always known this day would come, but now that it had arrived, the weight of her hidden truth pressed down on her harder than ever before. After a long pause, Zalika's father finally spoke. "Enzi, you are a good man. Zalika is lucky to have someone like you seeking her hand." His voice faltered slightly. "We will accept your proposal." The village erupted in celebration when word spread of their engagement. A grand wedding was planned, with feasts and music that filled the air for days. Zalika smiled through the festivities, but inside, she was conflicted. How long could she continue to keep her secret, even from the man who was now her husband? Zalika and Enzi's wedding was the talk of the village for weeks. The celebration was grand, filled with laughter, music, and blessings from every corner. To the villagers, it seemed like a perfect union, two of the kindest souls coming together in love. Yet beneath the surface, Zalika carried the heavy weight of her secret, and it was only a matter of time before the strain began to show. In the first few weeks of marriage, Zalika managed to maintain a delicate balance. She busied herself with household duties, always finding an excuse to delay moments of intimacy. Enzi, patient and gentle, did not push her. He assumed Zalika simply needed time to adjust to her new life as his wife. But as time went on, Enzi began to grow more confused and frustrated. "Zalika," he said one evening, his voice soft but firm, "we have been married for months now, yet it feels like we are still strangers. Is there something you're not telling me?" Zalika's heart raced, and she averted her eyes, unable to meet his gaze. I just need more time," she whispered, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew they wouldn't be enough to keep Enzi from questioning further. Rumors of their struggles began to swirl around the village. Elders and women with experience in marriage started giving unsolicited advice. "Maybe Zalika needs more guidance," they suggested to Enzi. "Speak with her parents, or perhaps consult the village elders. Something is not right." Desperate for answers, Enzi approached Zalika's parents. "Nia, I love your daughter, but something troubles me deeply," he confessed. "She keeps me at a distance, and I fear there is something she is not telling me. I want to help her, but I don't know how." Naya's face grew pale. The secret she and her husband had kept for so long now threatened to unravel. She knew the time was coming when Zalika's truth would have to be faced, not just by Enzi, but by the entire village. Zalika's struggle to maintain her secret weighed heavily on her, and it soon became too much to bear alone. One afternoon, she sought out her closest friend, Abeni, the only person in the village she trusted with her heart. They sat together beneath a large baobab tree, a favorite spot from their childhood, where they had shared countless moments of laughter and stories. "Abeni," Zalika whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "there is something I need to tell you. Something I have hidden my entire life." Abeni, sensing the gravity of her friend's words, leaned in closer. "Zalika, you can tell me anything. What's troubling you?" After a long, agonizing pause, Zalika finally revealed her secret. The truth about her birth, the secret her parents and the midwife had sworn to protect, and the struggle she faced in her marriage. Abeni sat in stunned silence, her mind trying to grasp what she had just heard. "I was born with both male and female parts," Zalika said quietly, tears brimming in her eyes. "I don't know what to do anymore, Abeni. I can't live like this, keeping secrets from the man I love. But I'm terrified of what will happen if the village finds out." Abeni, though shocked, took Zalika's hands and offered her a reassuring smile. "You are my sister, Zalika. No secret can change that. But you must decide how to face this. The truth always finds its way out." Despite Abeni's promise to keep her confidence, whispers began to spread in the village. It started subtly at first, a lingering glance here, a hushed conversation there, but soon the rumors became louder. People began to talk about Zalika's mysterious reluctance in her marriage, the tension that had grown between her and Enzi. Before long, the village was abuzz with speculation. One day, Zalika overheard two women near the marketplace, their voices low but filled with gossip. "Did you hear? There's something strange about her. They say she isn't like other women," one whispered to the other. Zalika's heart sank. The secret was no longer just hers. It had slipped through the cracks and into the mouths of the villagers. She knew the day she had feared for so long had come. The way the village viewed her was about to change forever. As the rumors about Zalika swirled around the village, a new and far more pressing issue arose: a devastating drought. The once lush fields turned dry and cracked, the rivers ran low, and the crops began to wither under the relentless sun. The village, which relied heavily on farming, was on the brink of starvation, and the elders grew desperate for a solution. The village's oracle, a revered elder who communicated with the gods, was consulted in a special ceremony. The entire village gathered around the sacred tree as the oracle, draped in traditional robes, entered a trance, seeking answers from the spirits. The crowd held its breath, waiting for guidance, a glimmer of hope in their eyes. After what felt like an eternity, the oracle opened her eyes and spoke. "The gods are displeased," she said gravely. "The balance has been disturbed. Only a pure and untouched woman, one who has not known a man, can restore harmony to our land." A murmur spread through the crowd. Who could this woman be? The villagers looked around, exchanging confused glances. Many eligible women had already been married or had children. But then, someone's gaze turned toward Zalika. The whispers grew louder. "Zalika," someone said softly. "She has been married to Enzi, but has she ever truly been his wife?" The rumors about Zalika's secret had already taken hold in the minds of the villagers, and soon, the connection seemed obvious to many. Zalika, despite being married, was still seen as untouched because of her struggles with intimacy. Could she be the one to save them? The village elders approached Zalika's parents, their faces grim. "Zalika must be the one to make the sacrifice," they said. "It is the only way to bring rain back to the land." Naya and her husband were torn. They had protected Zalika her entire life, but now it seemed that fate had chosen her for something far greater. When they told Zalika of the oracle's message, she stood in stunned silence, her heart heavy with fear and uncertainty. "Zalika," her mother whispered, tears in her eyes, "you have been strong your whole life. Perhaps this is the reason the gods made you as you are." Zalika nodded slowly. Deep inside, she knew that this was no longer just about her secret. The survival of the entire village rested on her shoulders. The drought had ravaged the land, and if this was the only way to save her people, then she would make the ultimate sacrifice. The day of the sacrifice arrived with a heavy, ominous stillness in the air. The sky was cloudless, and the sun blazed down upon the village as the people gathered near the sacred altar. The weight of Zalika's decision hung over everyone. She stood silently, her face calm but her heart racing, knowing what she was about to do could change everything. Not only for her, but for her entire village. Dressed in ceremonial robes, Zalika approached the altar, where the oracle and village elders waited. The villagers watched in awe, some still whispering, unsure of what would happen. Many no longer saw Zalika as the same kind and helpful woman they had known all their lives. Her secret had changed the way they looked at her. But now, she was their only hope. Enzi stood among the crowd, his eyes locked on Zalika, filled with both confusion and admiration. He had learned the truth about his wife, and though it had shaken him, he still loved her deeply. But now, as Zalika prepared to offer herself to the gods, he feared for what might come next. The oracle raised her hands, and the village fell silent. "Zalika," she intoned, "the gods require a pure and untouched soul to restore balance. Are you prepared to offer yourself for the salvation of your people?" Zalika, though trembling inside, nodded firmly. "I am ready." With that, the oracle began the ritual. The air seemed to thicken as she chanted ancient words, calling upon the gods to accept the offering and bring rain to the parched land. Zalika knelt before the altar. her eyes closed, surrendering herself completely to the will of the gods. As the chanting grew louder, a strange sensation coursed through her body, like a current of energy shifting deep within. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder echoed across the sky, startling the villagers. They looked up in amazement as dark clouds began to gather overhead. The first raindrop fell, then another, and soon the skies opened, pouring life-giving rain onto the dry earth. The people erupted in cheers, dancing and laughing as they celebrated the miracle that had saved them from ruin. But Zalika remained kneeling, her heart pounding, something within her changing. As the rain fell, she felt a release, a shift inside her. She looked down and realized something profound had happened. Her male private part was gone. The gods, in their mysterious ways, had taken her offering and made her whole. For the first time in her life, Zalika felt a sense of completeness. The part of her that had always set her apart was now gone, and she could finally embrace her true self. It was as if the gods had not only restored balance to the village, but to Zalika's own body and spirit. As the rain poured down, quenching the thirsty earth, the village celebrated with a fervor that had not been seen in years. Crops that had withered and cracked under the unforgiving sun now promised life again. The people danced in the streets, laughing, shouting their gratitude to the gods. But amidst the jubilation, the greatest transformation was happening not in the fields, but in the hearts of the villagers. Zalika stood up slowly from the altar, the weight of her sacrifice and the miraculous change within her finally settling in. She touched her body, feeling the absence of the part of her that had always marked her as different. In its place, a quiet peace bloomed. The gods had not only healed the land, but they had healed her spirit, too. The villagers, still drenched from the rain, began to turn their attention back to Zalika. They had come to witness a sacrifice but had seen something far greater. A miracle. The whispers that once carried rumors of her difference now shifted into murmurs of awe and admiration. Eyes that had once judged now looked upon her with reverence. "She is chosen by the gods," someone said softly, breaking the silence that had settled over the crowd. "She saved us," another added, and soon the villagers began to gather around Zalika, not with fear or suspicion, but with gratitude. The same people who had once gossiped and questioned her place among them now saw her as something more, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. Enzi pushed through the crowd, his heart heavy with everything that had happened. He reached Zalika's side, his eyes filled with both love and apology. "Zalika," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I had no idea, the strength you carried within you. Can you ever forgive me for my doubt?" Zalika smiled gently at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "There is nothing to forgive, Enzi," she said softly. "I, too, had to find peace within myself, but now I am whole." The village elders, recognizing the extraordinary nature of what had just happened, declared Zalika a hero and a symbol of unity. "Let this day be remembered," they proclaimed, "not only as the day the rains returned, but as the day our hearts were opened." In the weeks that followed, the village flourished under the renewed rainfall, but even more so under the new spirit of acceptance that had taken root. Zalika's bravery had not only brought rain, but had changed the way the village understood difference, sacrifice, and the divine. Enzi, deeply moved by Zalika's journey and the miracle they had all witnessed, approached her once more with a proposal. "Zalika," he began, kneeling before her again, "you saved this village, and you saved me. Will you allow me to stand by your side, not as a man who sought your hand, but as one who truly understands and respects the journey you've taken?" This time, Zalika's answer came with no hesitation, no fear of secrets or judgment. "Yes, Enzi," she said, her voice steady and full of warmth. "Let us begin again." Their second wedding was a quiet, humble affair, different from the grand celebration of their first union. It was not marked by feasts or music, but by a deep and shared understanding. The entire village gathered to witness their renewed vows, not just as husband and wife, but as two souls who had found their place in the world, united by love and resilience. As they stood together, hands clasped, the village cheered not just for their marriage, but for the transformation they had all undergone. Zalika had become more than just the woman born with both male and female parts. She was a symbol of courage, of sacrifice, and of the power that comes from embracing one's true self. And from that day forward, Zalika's name was spoken not with whispers of gossip, but with reverence, as the woman who had brought rain to the land and unity to her people. Zalika's incredible journey reminds us that true strength comes from within, and that even the deepest secrets can transform into powerful sources of healing. What do you think Zalika's story reveals about the strength of community and the power of acceptance? Share your thoughts in the comments below.